40 dates in 4 months. My crazy single again online dating adventure by Janine Conway. Why so many dates in such a short period of time? I wish I could say I had an inspiring, world changing, higher purpose reason. I don't. I can't even say that I was tired of being alone and I was on a mission to find my soulmate. I wasn't. I didn't even want a boyfriend. I loved being single, and I intended to never marry again. Having married relatively young, I found that single again landscape too crazy, and having a man just wasn't worth the effort and pain. So, why did I go out with so many guys? To be blunt, I was nursing a crushed ego. You see, I had been dating a man. Let's call him Mr. Gap Filler, on and off for about a year. I was thrilled when he brought me a very expensive Christmas gift. Imagine my shock when a couple of months later he announced to one of our networking groups that he met the woman he's going to marry, and it wasn't me. When people were confused, he explained that I was just the gap filler until the real thing came along. Ouch. So I was trying to prove him wrong. Part of that was I was desirable, and embarrassed to admit, a small part of me hoped he'd never come back to me. Don't judge y'all. The easiest way to do that, so I thought, was to put a profile on Match.com and go out with everyone who asked me. After all, I'd met Mr. Gap Filler through a brief trial period at Match.com a couple of years prior. I never saw Mr. Gap Filler again, but I'm thankful that he was such a jerk. I updated my dormant Match profile and was contacted by over 300 men over a 4 month period. I went out with 24 of them that summer, a total of 49 dates, 40 of which are described in this book. And in the process, I actually met the love of my life. I certainly didn't expect to find a husband. I tried online dating a few years back, and it was the worst experience of my life. Most of the men who contacted me were actually married, stringing me along for months without ever meeting in person. The few I met in person quickly taught me that normal guys don't want a military woman. That's me, 20 plus years in the Air Force. And they certainly didn't want a female minister. That's me too. Finally, they didn't want a woman who'd only had one sexual partner and minimal dating experience. My first husband was my only partner, and I dated very few men since him. I've had three strikes against me, and I hadn't even come up to bat yet. Not only was my online dating experience dismal at best, but I also noticed that weren't looking my way like they used to. I thought that maybe it was because I was larger than most women in the little Midwestern town and asked a couple of platonic guy friends for their opinions. They were in unison. The problem wasn't that I changed, I hadn't, but that my uniform changed. You see, I had achieved a relatively high rank in the military a few months before all this went down, and being a single mom, I did a lot of my errands in uniform. From my friend's perspective, random men wouldn't feel comfortable asking me out if they saw me in my uniform. And that's all everyone ever saw me in. You may have heard that's the sexiest thing a woman can put on is confidence. And that's true. However, there's a difference between being confident and sending clear signals that will be hard to please. And apparently, that's what my new rank was saying. I didn't really have the mindset for marriage anyway. I wanted to prove Mr. Gapfiller was wrong about my value, but my marriage ended in such a horrible way that I never wanted to be tied down again. You see, I returned home from a 6 month military trip to find my house sold, most of my belongings thrown out. We signed divorce papers that week. He went off to enjoy looking at a young, pulling in college girls, and I went off to learn how to be broke, a single mom. On one hand, life was tough, But on the other one, I was free from this 15 years of abuse that I had to hide underneath a rug for the ministry's sake. So I didn't have high expectations of the men I would meet online. I just wanted to meet lots of men and just post Facebook pictures to make Mr. Gapfiller jealous. Fast forward to today, Mr. Man and I are happily married and we have a very full life. My oldest son was the result of 8 years of work trying to conceive, and after 4 losses, I knew I couldn't have any more children. Mr. Man himself had tried for 10 years with his ex wife, and they weren't able to conceive. He had reared a son on his own, the same as he did for mine. So imagine our surprise when we discovered that we were pregnant. While pregnancy in your 40s is a piece of cake, spending our first anniversary with a newborn was well worth it. Our 2 boys are incredibly bonded despite the 10 years between them, and our family just seems to work. We've had a few adjustments to make, and our families too, since I've come from an interracial background, and he, the southern gentleman that he is, most certainly did not. But you know what? None of this. My life now would have happened if I decided to step out of my comfort zone and get back into the dating game. I learned a lot going on these dates, and I had a lot of fun with them too. So I hope you learn a lot from my adventures and have a little fun reading my stories. Blessings, J.J. Conway. Date number 1, Mr. Rocker turned bureaucrat. I was thrilled when the very first man to approach me was a handsome rocker with long hair and a 5 o'clock shadow. His voice was dreamy, and we spent evenings on the phone engaged in deep, meaningful discussions. He recently retired from the military and claimed that he still wanted to live an active life. He liked all of my favorite sports and quickly said yes when he asked me to dinner. We met at a popular but not too pricey local restaurant, and it took a while for him to realize that the man pacing outside the restaurant was him. Why? Because the man who approached me did not have a long rocker haircut or carefree appearance. He had a buzz cut. He walked like a bureaucrat. He was a good 60 pounds heavier than his profile picture. Talk about bait and switch. This man clearly looking to meet someone was not the man in the pictures I saw online. Though disappointed, once I confirmed it was him, I decided to give him a chance. After all, perhaps he recently had surgery or something that packed on the weight. If nothing else, I was broke and this was my one good meal for the day. Sadly or not, things went pretty downhill fast. Most of the fun outdoor activities he described to me were things he'd done 20 years ago. I can't run, surf, or snowboard now, he explained, because of my surgeries. And I don't hike or camp anymore because I have a sleep apnea and have a sleep connected to a machine. Sounds horrible, right? But wait, it gets worse. He had the nerve to tell me that I was too broad. But I'll still give you a chance, he said. You're in such great shape, I'll just have to overlook your size. This is coming from a guy whose profile pics were thin and trim, yet sitting before me was a gut twice my size. Surprisingly, he wanted a second date. No, just no. In retrospect, he'd probably taken his profile pictures right after retiring from the military. He'd probably grown his hair out after 20 years of buzz cuts and wanted to have some fun for a few months before taking another job. He probably didn't realize how much different he looked, just as I didn't realize how much weight I put on after each pregnancy, until I looked at pictures of people had taken of me. The victory for me in this story is that in the past, I would have internalized Mr. Rocker turned bureaucrat's opinions about my size and spend the next couple of weeks hating my appearance. This time, however, I took it off his problem, something we as women need to do a lot more often. Moral of the story? People lie. They put up fake or really old profile pictures and dare you to say something. They pretend to be younger than they are or to enjoy activities they think you want them to enjoy. When you aren't okay with the truth, they get mad and they lash out on you. Expect it and don't internalize it. It's something being wrong with you. It's really something wrong with them. Date number two, Mr. Take Advantage of Me. This sweet, cute bundle of insecurity let me choose our lunch date location and to choose my favorite lunch spot. It was yummy and our conversation flowed freely. He had a pretty eyes and kind spirit. Too kind, though. He'd been married too many times for me to list, and he detailed how each one of them had taken him for a ride. College loans paid off here, a house paid off there. His last wife pressured him for months to retire from the military and buy her a new car. As soon as he did, she left him. Thankfully, he didn't have any kids with any of these women, or he'd have no hope of retiring with financial stability. My first thought was, wow, I really could get a lot out of this guy. And after years of give, give, give with nothing in return, it really excited me to think that I might have someone to give to me for a change. But then reality crept in. I realized that this guy had a lot of healing to do. I could help him heal, sure, but that's not what I came here for. I was looking to have some fun and be carefree, not to play counselor, mom, or best friend. Have you ever noticed that dating profiles that say, I don't want drama, tend to attract a lot of drama? Our dating profiles say no cheaters, attract a lot of cheaters? And that dating profiles that advertise no gold diggers or no men just looking for sex end up getting exactly those kinds of people? I'm no expert, but I think it's because those signals indicate that they've been in those relationships repeatedly. So while their words say one thing, their experience says that they'll settle for what they profess not to want. I wish this man the best because he really was a nice guy, but I could easily see myself falling into the same pattern as the other woman in his life, taking advantage of his good nature and eventually losing respect for him. Moral of the story? If you've been taken advantage of in the past relationships, do not broadcast this to your new love interest. At best, you might drive off the right kind of partner, and at worst, you might attract the predators and the users. Mr. Take Advantage of Me would have been wise to spend a few months working on his own personal growth before seeking another partner. Mr. Nice Guy I poofed on. Date number three. RTFQ. They teach that you in college exams. Read the full questions. In this case, RTFP. Read the full profile. I didn't. I was struck by those amazing eyes, and he looked like he met all the qualifications. Good looking? Check. Liked kids, nephews, and nieces? Checked. Was really into me? Check. So what was the problem? I'm embarrassed to admit that it was my own insecurity that kept me from going on a second date with Mr. Nice Guy. He called and asked several times, but I never responded. You see, when I first accepted the date, I had several profiles jumbled in my mind. I expected him to be about a foot taller than he was, and since he was in excellent shape, that meant he was much thinner than I expected. As you might have guessed from date one, I'm no string bean. I'm very fit, but I'm also full figure, and I just knew I wouldn't feel girly around someone that size. A few years prior, when I briefly had online dating, several guys I dated got mad for me for my size. They all started out liking me, but then they would criticize my eating and drinking choices and ultimately wanted me to be a better, thinner version of myself. I'd been married to someone like that, and I just couldn't expose myself to that type of negativity again. My feelings would be hurt when guys would tell me I was too big, and even when I tried to post accurate pics and explain before each date that I was broad shouldered. So even date number two said he was thrilled to meet a normal lady on Match.com. I was afraid he would get tired of feeling like he was hugging his mom. And even more so, I wouldn't feel feminine with someone as thin as my own son. I wish I could have told him there that there was nothing wrong with him, but I didn't know how to explain it without hurting his feeling. Moral of the story? Don't judge the man in front of you by the sins of other men who have hurt you. The guy truly deserved at least one more date. He was wonderful. He was everything a lady could want, and I threw that away. That opportunity because I felt too insecure about my size. Even though it probably would have lasted going out a few more times and would have been fun and boasted both of our dating confidence, he didn't deserve my poofing. Date number 4, Mr. Gentle Giant. Divorced female ministers made up a fairly small portion of the population where I lived. The divorce part scared off the good Christian men, and the minister part scared off many of the great guys. Throw in it that I'm a tad bit larger than most women in the military, you can understand why I was used to attention from men who looked like Greek gods. When Mr. Gentle Giant asked me out, I was sure he was setting up for a scam. This man wasn't just hot, he was hot. I went out with him anyway. Did I mention because he was hot? You know what they say, your dating value goes up when you date people of higher caliber. The scam I expected never to come, I learned a lot from him over the 2 months that we dated. I noticed that he was still active on Match.com, so I continued to accept dates. He was one of the only handful of guys I could actually see a future with. Our first date was at Starbucks. The other guys I had met on dates were easy to connect with because either the restaurant we chose to meet was empty or I was only the black woman in the room, so they quickly found me. But our Starbucks had a really narrow driveway and it felt awkward standing outside. This usually empty Starbucks hosted several guys who were sitting alone, just sitting, like they were waiting for something. I had so much nervous energy because I felt like my date wasn't going to like my appearance that I made a good fool of myself asking several guys, "Are you Mr. Gentle Giant?" Embarrassed, I went back outside and tried not to get run over while waiting for him to arrive. He was only 5 minutes late, but it felt like an eternity. I'd almost left. Sounds silly as I type this, but in the movement, sometimes our emotions and insecurities take over and we expend too much mental energy on something as minor as where to meet a guy. Not the car because he'll think I was late. Don't text "I'm here" because he'll think you're one of those women. Don't go back inside because they're all going to laugh at you. Don't stand out here looking like a beggar. It's too much. When he walked up 5 minutes later, I was so happy that he actually looked like the profile picture. Very rare. And we ended up having a lovely coffee date with easy yet intelligent conversation. Moral of the story? Don't get so caught up in small stuff that you miss out on the golden opportunities. Although Mr. Gentle Giant did not win the ultimate prize of becoming Mr. Man, he was a lot of fun to date and to be seen with. And for the record, online dating etiquette, yes, there is such a thing, says you should wait outside the restaurant for your date. Date number 5, Mr. Gentle Giant at the park. I really liked Mr. Gentle Giant. He was exciting when he asked if he could see me again. He was fun to talk to and had a lot of business sense and intelligence hidden underneath that magnificent body. But being broke was cramping my dating style because sitters wanted at least 20 hours plus gas. When you're going on 2 to 4 dates a week, you just don't have that time or money. I had over 800,000 of divorce debt to pay off, and I had to do what I told my financial planning clients to do. Tighten your belt and stop spending money when you don't have it. My typical go-to strategy was to ask the guy for a weekend lunch date or an early dinner so I could be done before the daycare closes at 6:30. And for a date during Awana night, since there were no programs for adults and I wouldn't feel guilty for dropping my son off to go on a date. On occasion, there would be a Mother's Night Out or Mother's Day Out events on the weekend, and I used those as well as too. Every so often, my friends would watch my son for me. They were all single themselves, so I tried not to impose too much. Mr. Gentle Giant and I had the creativity about spending time together because it was tough meeting during the day. Being in the restaurant business, his work schedule didn't cooperate with a lot of the daytime or early evening dates, so we planned some Saturday mornings at the park. The idea was that he'd bring his kids to play at the park, and I'd bring my son to play at the park, and we were just two parents sitting on the bench talking while our kids played with each other and whoever else was in the park. The children had no idea we were dating. My son still asks to hang out with his son to this day. Moral of the story: be creative. Find ways to get out there and date. Don't hurt your financial or family bottom line. Don't kill yourself or your pocketbook just for a date. A man is not worth going into debt for. He's not worth sneaking out of your work and possibly getting fired from your job. He is not worth sacrificing your commitments to family and community. If it is meant to be, you'll find a way to make it work with the money and time you have available. Date number 6, Mr. Chutzpah. I remember how flattered I was when Mr. Chutzpah chased me down from the Sam's Club and asked me out to dinner. It was a kind of awkward, and he wasn't my type. I liked barrel-chested, broad men on the shoulder and scale, but Mr. Chutzpah was the right height, but he was more like a strong fox than a big bear I was going for. I just finished reading What Southern Women Know About Flirting and decided to internalize one of the great lessons in that book. Always reward a man who is gentlemanly with a big smile. If you're single and a man has the boldness to ask you to dinner, then go. You see, in today's world, it can be difficult for a man to put himself out there like that. I remember insisting I could open my own doors and scowling when a man complimented my appearance. Modern, strong, independent women can be intimidating, and it takes a lot of gumption for a man to ask us out anyway. In short, even though you might not be interested in the man, giving him a chance will encourage him to ask the next lady for a date. So please consider going out with every man who directly asks you out for dinner, especially if you don't have anything better going on. So when Mr. Chutzpah asked me out, I was coming out of a dry spell. Yes, men on Match.com were approaching me like crazy, but typically lost interest when they discovered my high rank in the military. Believe it or not, I started telling guys whom I actually work with that I did admin work. So at least I could get to know them before I dropped the truth on them. As I mentioned in the intro, in months since my promotion, no one has asked me out in person. So here I was standing in my uniform with this scrappy, wiry Cajun telling me how beautiful I was and that he would regret it forever if he didn't ask me out on a date. That kind of boldness deserved at least one dinner with a gorgeous woman. That's exactly what I gave him. Mr. Chutzpah encouraged me to something new. We went to a popular sushi restaurant and we had a fantastic conversation. I had so much fun and kept trying to imagine ways to make things work with him. Unfortunately, our lifestyles were too different for a good partnership, and I just couldn't wish it away. That night, I expanded my culinary repertoire and gained a great friend. Our conversation and social media interactions over the years has been wonderful. Moral of the story: when a man asks you out, unless you are seriously quality issues, you are already seeing someone, you should consider saying yes. You'll encourage him to keep approaching quality women like yourself, which is good for the overall sisterhood. You increase your dating value in the eyes of the men around you by being on a date, and you never know what you might learn. So that was the first 6 dates in 40 dates in 4 months, my crazy single again online dating adventure by Janine Conway. If you like this, be sure to stay tuned for part 2 as I continue reading 40 Dates in 40 Months. Thank you so much. This is Melanie with Lightbeams Treasures.